So here's what I want to tell the three of you about this video. So a friend of mine was behind making this video, and he is part of, does a lot of anti-slavery work. He's been doing anti-slavery work for about 20 years, and he's visited this class several times. What we know today about slavery is that it's pretty clear there are more slaves today in the world than at any point in human history. The estimates are somewhere between 30 and 40 million. The most recent estimates just came out from various anti-slavery organizations. It's about 40 million, but I'm always leery of high-end estimates, so I bring them down. So 30 to 40 million. And here's what we know about chocolate and about slavery and chocolate. Ivory Coast produces about 40% of the world's chocolate, and this is what he says. He says, listen, when you have chocolate that's not fair trade, slave-free, the way the chocolate industry works is you take the cocoa beans, and the beans go and they're sold on the open market. And it's almost certain that there are traces of slave-produced chocolate in chocolate that is not anti-slavery chocolate, okay? So this chocolate right here, Hershey's, almost certainly has chocolate that's been picked by slaves. Certainly low-wage workers, but picked by slaves. Traces, meaning it's not the whole bag, but it's certainly traces, because so much chocolate in the world is produced in the Ivory Coast, and so much of the Ivory Coast chocolate is produced by slaves. Okay? Slaves. This isn't slavery like I work at Walmart and I'm paid low wages, or I work at an East Halls washing dishes and paid. No, this is slavery every bit as bad and troubling, and in many ways worse than slavery historically. Because even today, the price of a slave today is a small fraction of the price of slaves during the period of chattel slavery in the U.S. and the Caribbean. So at least even then, slaves have values. Now, today, you can go places today in the world and buy slaves for $5 or $10. So these slaves have almost no value whatsoever. All right? So this is what we're operating with. All right? So the first question I have is, you say you knew. First off, the first question I have is, now we have to eat another piece of chocolate. You don't need, okay, you got some. All right, another bit of chocolate.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Another bit of chocolate. So now we know you're eating slave chocolate, slave-produced chocolate. So the first question I have is, what have you heard about this? What do you know about it? We're going to start with you. What do you know about this?
I don't know anything about it. I've never heard, I didn't know about like chocolate. I know that there's like slavery still. I just didn't know under what circumstances it was.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know that it had anything to do with chocolate.
So, okay. And how is it that you don't know? Like how? Do you have your phone on you, for example? Like, I can get my phone out. I just want to ask you this. I can get my phone out, and I can jump on the Google search engine, and I can put slavery and chocolate, and about 100 things pop up. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's not like it's not available.
Yeah, but that's the same thing with like a lot of knowledge. Like there's so many things that we could just look up and it'd be there, and we still don't know. Like I feel like if more people knew, then maybe we wouldn't even have this problem anymore.
Well, what is it that keeps people from knowing? Go ahead. How about you?
I feel like, okay, well for me, I didn't really know about it like as much as I saw in the video. I just saw like some of like tweets and stuff about it. But I feel like what keeps people from not knowing about it.
No, what keeps you from not knowing about it? So you saw something about it, but you didn't explore it.
Yeah.
What kept you from exploring it?
I feel like one thing that kept me from exploring is because it was in a different country. I know that that's like something that people would be like, oh, why would you not explore it? But I feel like there's a lot of problems going on here too. So to start with, like changing something, you have to start with where you are.
So let me ask you a question. So you're of African American ancestry, right? So your ancestors who were enslaved, what would they say about that, about your answer? Like, what would they say, like, let's say back in the day, let's take ourselves back 180 years. And, I don't know, people in Canada or people in Japan or people in Germany or wherever, just like, yeah, I know, I hear about that slavery stuff, but we're buying cotton from the Americans. It's all picked by slaves because, like, well, I know I hear something about it, but I don't know, it's a different country, and I'm not. What would your ancestors say about that?
I feel like, you know, of course they would want help, or like you want somebody to care, or not care, but you know, like do something about it. But I'm just one person, I feel like, so I feel
Yeah.
like they wouldn't look at me particularly
Yeah.
and think, oh, because you didn't explore it, you didn't like do enough or try to help, because I'm just one person.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on. Max. We're going to come to you. Your Haitian ancestors? Haiti was a slave port, right? Like every black person almost in Haiti was a slave. So that half of your ancestors is absolutely. What would they say?
About,
I mean, look,
about me not knowing about
you're
it.
fucking. Dude, you're wearing an Africa pin on your hat. And a middle-aged white guy is informing you about slavery that you could find on your phone with a very simple search. Slavery chocolate. You can find it. You can know all about it. And it's I'm at the peak end of middle age, by the way. A white guy who's coming in and saying, like, yeah, here it is. I'm going to teach, let's talk about slavery. You know about this, right? Because these are your ancestors, and like.
I mean, I guess it just goes to show, how I'm not invested in learning about all issues around the world, I guess. I don't know what anyone could really think of that other than, okay, well, I guess she's just a little bit ignorant on the topic.
Well, I'm going to push a little harder, right? You know, I'm pushing you, right? I'm pushing the two of you in particular till I get to him. So, here's another thing. You know, my ancestors who were here, I go back, on my one side of my family, I trace people back to Virginia in the 18th century. They were poor. I've had like many generations of people who never got beyond working class, because I grew up working class. So it's like, talk about bad genes. But nonetheless, so they weren't like slave owners or anything. They were just poor white people. But nonetheless, the other side of my ancestors, like if you're living in the North, you hear about slavery, but people didn't have videos, they didn't have photos, they didn't have recordings, they didn't really have anything. All they had was like hearsay information about slavery that was happening. But y'all in some way I can almost give them a pass, right? Like all these white people who maybe weren't involved in dealing with slavery, or other people, but y'all, it's right here. This generation of people, you just jump on your phone and you got it available to you. And we're not doing it. So it makes me then think about, well, okay, I guess that's why people in the past didn't really do anything, and they accepted this horrible institution called slavery. That your ancestors, the two of you, were very much enslaved. And other people just went on with their lives. It's okay, whatever. I don't know, do you have a thought on that?
Do you want it? Okay. I feel like you said, people didn't really, because they didn't have videos and pictures. It takes more people to, actually try to do
okay.
change.
Yeah, that's fair. Yo, Max, what do you know about slavery in your homeland, your parents' homeland? Because, hang on, let me show you a couple things. Can you go to the next slide, bro? Let me just show you this. Go ahead. So, about 15,000 children in the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, are enslaved between the ages of, 9 and 12. Okay, that's a lot of children. 200,000 total slaves working on about 600,000 farms, although, again, the estimates shift a little bit. But that's a lot of people. You could fill up Beaver Stadium 2 times. That's a lot of people just there, right? And producing 40% of the world's cocoa. So, that is a lot of production, slave production. What do you know about it?
To be honest, I did know about this, and
You
it's been-
did?
I did know, and it's been going on for a while.
So what did you know, though?
That there were kids working on farms for free, and they weren't being treated right.
Uh-huh. And what have you done? Do you talk about it? What do
I
you...
mean, I've talked about it to some people, but
And do you eat chocolate?
as in like
Cookies. So, the irony, okay? I mean, seriously, it's a WTF moment. Okay, what is it?
I think once you start the habit, as a child, Christmas comes, you eat chocolate, or like I gave the example of
Wait,
the
dude, hang on. Can you hang on? Yo. Max is talking. Go ahead, bro.
Thank you. But like I said, when you're a child, Christmas, you eat chocolate, you go to school, everybody eats chocolate, and then, you come to discover it's made by slaves. You have to break that habit that, you grew up on. And same thing with the iPhone, you know what I mean? There's a whole bunch of people, buy the next iPhone, buy the next iPhone. And then you find out that it's, produced by slaves. And it's kind of, you have to change your thinking and, like, change your brain from breaking the habit of, like, buying a cell phone. But it's a guilty pleasure.
So it makes me think about all the things we learn about history. Yeah, it makes sense, right? I'm with you.
You have something to say?
It makes me think about all the things we learn about history and these kinds of things, and how is it that people could act a certain way, and how can people go to war, and how can people kill other people, and how can they do that? Well, it's the same way that we do it, right? We just kind of get on with our lives and live in this vision about where we block out the things that we don't want to pay attention to because they don't conveniently fit with the narrative that we want to speak, right? Yes, ma'am.
I feel like with this case of chocolate is very similar to many other things that we consume in our society where, like, if you really saw where it came from and what it does, what effect it has on our people, what it has effects on environment or whatever it is, like, you can cut things out. And, like, I've personally done that for myself with, like, the environment and trying to, like, eat different and stuff. But it's hard because if you take into account everything that you do in our society, like, you kind of can't even really be a part of society. If you really want to look at every little thing, then you won't be buying clothes, you won't be wearing Nike, and you won't be eating any meat. You probably wouldn't be eating fish either. You'd be growing your own plants. Like, it's kind of like a whole different life you'd have to live that's very different from the life that we have here for us to live.
Well, okay, listen, go to the next slide, bro. Actually, not necessarily, right? So you can buy clothes that's fair trade. You can eat food that's fair trade. You can find fish that's fair trade. You can find all sorts of goods. And
you can, but like you can find things that are fair trade, but what are most things? Like, it's different. Like, you have to make that change, and you have to do it actively. Like, you have to pay attention to everything you're doing. You can't just, like, follow trends and wear Jordans because they're popping or whatever, or Louis Vuitton. Like, you just can't support a lot of the things that we see to be, like, the greatest, or, like, things we want, and, like, just a whole consumer lifestyle where we won't be supporting that anymore. And that's, like, our whole life's what we've been told to kind of reach for. So it's very different from what we already know.
So what's interesting to me, and you're going to get the last word, what's interesting to me, here we are in a race relations class where we're looking at all of the differences between us, but also all of the similarities. And it strikes me that in many ways, there are all these similarities that bind us together. And in some ways, it's all the things that you all are talking about, right? When we come into a race relations class, the typical race class anywhere in the U.S., it's going to be, hey, let's get people of color to tell all the white people about all the ways in which white people are really bad and problematic and so on. And then we find out, wait a minute, when we dig into this stuff, we're actually all in this together in so many different ways. And that's what makes this really powerful, because everything that you're saying are the exact kinds of things that everybody else would say. Men would say about women and gender relations and white people.
The whole chocolate thing, like the chocolate thing is very problematic because, like, okay, it's slavery, but it's like their own people putting you in slavery. It's like, it's not like it's race. It's not like it's, I don't want to say it's like culture. I just want to say, like, there's a lot of things that people do in, like, I'm sorry, but like a lot of African countries are actually just like, they're not doing well, and it's because of corrupt government. It's because what people do to their own people. So like that itself is problematic. So I mean, we all are contributing to it. I feel like.
That's right. No, it's really easy to just look at certain groups of people and point the finger. But it's like you point one finger out at other people, you have three coming back at you, right? And maybe in some ways the hardest possible thing to do, the most difficult thing that any of us can do, is look at the ways in which we contribute to the kinds of issues and the problems that are out there in the world, as opposed to just looking at other people and pointing at other people and assuming that they're the problem and that we're okay. And then it's really like with Donald Trump. It's really easy to hate Donald Trump, but like, well, what about all the people that you think are doing, it's not easy. It's easy for people of this generation to hate. Actually, it's easy to either be amused by Donald Trump or dislike him. Yeah, I'll say it that way. But what about all the other people, right? It's like the holier-than-thou perspective. And this is a problem. Yes, ma'am, final comment.
I feel like in this country we're like taught to not think about how we got to where we are, or like how we get the things that we do. So I feel like that's kind of something that's just embedded in our brains. So like you just eating chocolate, you're not gonna be like, oh, maybe a slave like had a part of this or something. But I feel like, you know, once you do become educated, that's when you can separate yourself and like, you know, start making your own decisions about how you want to feel about something and how you want to think about it.
Yeah, and once you make a decision to actually start to think more deliberately about who's responsible and how much responsibility do I have, then we go the next step, you know.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. You're very cool. Hey, listen, so here's what I have for you all, right? I have fair trade, slave-free chocolate that's really, so you can get this for about $2.50 a bar. This is lemon ginger. This is straight up dark chocolate. This is also dark chocolate. Who wants the lemon ginger? That's really good. I'll take that back. All right, man.
Not trying to eat those.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for coming up. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Dad. All right, man. All right, so listen up, y'all. Now we're going to go another direction. Who's involved in THON? Who's really involved in THON? I mean, like, is there anybody here who's like one of the higher ups in THON? Dude, you are? You're a higher up? I don't mean like a captain. You're like a big cheese? Are there any big cheeses in here? Are there any like second layer down big cheese? So bro, are you like you're a captain? Anybody higher than a captain, or a captain's about it? Anybody higher than a captain? Dude, you are? What are you? What are you? Oh my God. There is a God. And she is now in 119. Okay, can you come down? Bro, why don't you come down too? Since you have you ever volunteered, bro? All right, the two of you come down. Oh man. Supply logistics. Okay. All right, man. So, what's your name?
Nikita.
Nikita.
Yes.
Tim. So have a seat. Tell it, where are you, Nikita? So you're Supply Logistics.
Yes.
Where are you from?
I'm from New Jersey, East Brunswick.
Where in New Jersey?
Like central East Brunswick, so I'm like by Rutgers.
Where at?
East
What-
Brunswick.
I used to live in East Brunswick.
way.
Yeah. All right. So listen. So you are Supply Logistics. What got you involved in THON?
Just my freshman year, my roommate, she is also one of my co-directors now, which is weird, but she really wanted to get involved, so she was like, let's go to an information session. So then we did, and I was like, oh yeah, this is something I should get involved in. Seems like a good cause, and make some friends, so yeah.
Okay. Cool. So Nikita,
Yes.
are you named after anybody?
No.
That's a cool name. All right, bro. What's your name? And
My name's Tim Seidel. I'm from Northeast Philadelphia. I don't know, what else do you want? It's kind of the basics.
what got you involved in THON?
My sister went here. She graduated from here. She got really involved with it, and I remember watching the live stream of it as a junior in high school. And so when I came to Penn State, I was like, this is something I definitely have to do. I was like, this is incredible. So.
And
yeah,
what
so
kind of captain are you? Like a captain?
I'm
of
the
what?
captain of a dancer relations committee.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
cool. And you have a loud voice, dude. Thank you for that. You are a man after my heart. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about THON a little bit. Now, what you need to know is that this is just like the last conversation we had. This is going to be an exploration, okay? And I think what we need to do is move you out this way a little bit because I want you to be able to turn and see that. So pull your chairs up this way. I just want you to be able to see this. All right, so first slide, bro. Do you ever notice that, like, you can buy a T-shirt for just a few dollars, right? Like, you can go up to Michael's craft shop. You can buy a T-shirt for like $1.50. I can get T-shirts, and I don't even mean like on the sale rack where they're just getting rid of them. I mean like a plain white T-shirt for $1.50 or whatever the case is. And you ever wonder, like, how is it possible to make a T-shirt for $1.50? You know what I mean? Like, how do we make clothing so inexpensively? Including that shirt, by the way, even though you paid a lot more for that because it has a little swoosh on it, but still, it's made just as inexpensively. Do you ever wonder that? Yeah, sure. Do you wonder that, bro? Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about this and understand that I'm a fan of THON. I've been around when THON was in the White Building, and on Friday night of THON, when people were dancing, there were like me and about 15 other people at midnight in the stands because THON wasn't really a big thing. And whereas now you can't even get a seat 24/7, right? So, all right, go to the next slide. So listen, we're going to talk about cotton for a little bit, okay? And this matters for THON, right? So about 500,000 children are picking cotton in India, okay? And they're picking cotton either as slaves and by the way, going back to slavery, we talk 30 to 40 million slaves in the world today. Most of them are not in Africa. Most slaves are in Asia, and in Asia, most slaves are in India. So keep that in mind. And so here we go, right? So children can work 10 to 15 hours a day. These are children. Children, as young as like 6 or 7 years old, can work in India 10 to 15 hours a day. And again, they're working either as slaves or they're working for very low wages. So you can imagine if children are competing against slaves, meaning like children that get nothing, those who get paid are getting paid very, very little. And most slaves are in India, right? So they work for free. And the cotton revenues in India total, cotton revenues, just cotton, I'm not talking about making clothes, total about $9 billion into the Indian economy. And this is just India. So I'm going to talk about other countries. But so here you see children working, right? And so again, I just came back from India and watching, engaging and watching children on the streets and so on. It's like really pretty traumatizing. But 500,000, so that's filling up Beaver Stadium. I mean, India's a big country, obviously, right? But these are just children working. All right, next slide. So insecticides and pesticides, right? So cotton crops, of all the crops that are grown in the world today, 2.4% of all the land mass on which crops are grown involves cotton. 2.4%, all right, of all the crops. Nonetheless, 24% of the total insecticide that are used, insecticides, right? So you have insecticides, you have pesticides. So insecticides are a version of pesticides, right? So we go after all pests, but insecticides, we go after insects. 24% of all insecticides go on to cotton crops in the world today. And 11% of all pesticides go into cotton. So the problem is cotton requires a lot of insecticides and a lot of pesticides. And here you have some men in India spraying insecticides or pesticides on the cotton crops. So this is what they look at. This is common all over the world where cotton is grown, in poor countries of the world where cotton is grown. This is how people are spraying insecticides and pesticides, okay? Cool? Got it? Next slide, bro. This is how it's done in the U.S. So very different, right? So you got these guys here, and you got these guys here. And very, very different. Look at this. I mean, really look. There's not a part of this person that is covered. These are really dangerous chemicals. And they have to go on cotton. Again, remember, 24% of pesticides and 11% or insecticides and 11% of pesticides. So this is what the recommendation is in the United States. Look at this, right? More developed countries. In fact, this is legal. This is required in the U.S. So if you own a farm in the U.S., OSHA is going to require that, in fact, your workers, if they're spraying these dangerous chemicals, this is what they're going to wear. Okay, go to the next slide. So here's a young girl in India picking cotton that's been sprayed. So, her hands, here she has this on her face, but her body is completely exposed to it. Next slide. So, the World Health Organization. Now, more like activist organizations will say that, hey, about 1.2, the estimates are about 1.2 or 1.3 million people die from insecticide or pesticide poisoning every year. But those are activist organizations, so I'm not going to push those kinds of numbers. But the low number, at the very least, is 200,000. So here you have a little girl that are killed, that die every year, and millions more poisoned, right? And the poisonings can result in any number of problems. But here's a young girl, again, picking, cotton crops that have insecticides and pesticides and so on, right? And so here's a young girl here. And so they're not in school, obviously, right? So they're out of school. They're picking this. People are dying. People are getting sick. Children in particular, because the nature of children's bodies and the nature of the ways in which bodies develop and so on, children are way more likely to die. And we know this because you're involved in THON, and THON is about addressing cancer and so on, right? Okay. So do you have any questions at this point in time?
I'm from India. I was born in India, so I definitely know about this issue. I know there's a terrible poverty and homelessness issue there. So I think that, I'll wait for you. I don't know what point you're trying to get at, but I'll wait before I say my opinions.
Well, we're just going to have a conversation. I'm not sure I know what point I'm going to get at. Okay, let's go to the next one. Here's some children in a cancer ward in India. So they have cancer. Some of them surely have cancer. There are any number of reasons that they got cancer, but here's a cancer ward in India. It looks very much, could be the United States, right? The kids, and it's really cute, and there's something about, he looks like he has some kind of rash here, this young boy. Let's go another direction. Next slide. So let's talk about sweatshop labor. Do you know anything about sweatshop labor, bro? A little bit. Do you know something about sweatshop labor? A little bit? Okay, some of you know something about sweatshop labor. So let's talk about this briefly, okay? So go back. So here it is, right? And I've been in sweatshops, right? So this is kid. This is what he's going to be doing. 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, right? And could be enslaved as well, because this is kind of the nature of it. They might be enslaved as well, and that's what they're doing, and that's their lives, right? So they start at a young age, bringing food, bringing some small amounts of money home for their families, and there they are, working, And that's it. Next slide. Here's what, here we are. Look at, I mean, this is just, you don't have to read. You read a little bit and you see it and so on, right? It's pretty, it's deeply troubling, actually, right? I mean, look, can you imagine? Can we go back one? Can you imagine, y'all, those of you who have brothers and sisters, or you have a child, just imagine you have a child, or you have little brothers and sisters, that's your brother right there. He started doing that work when he was 5 years old, and he's doing that work. There he is. He's like 11, and he's going to be doing that work maybe for the rest of his life, and that's him. Like, that's it. He's never leaving. He's never getting out of that. That's his life, and that's what it is. And by hook or by crook, here we are, right? Here you are, right? So your family's from India. Were you born in India?
Yeah.
So you're born in India, and you're here, but you could be born in India, you could be him, or you could be them, but you're not. You're here. And so in some ways, it's just fate. The hand of fate just comes down and just touches you on the head and touches you on the head, touches me, because obviously I've been immensely lucky in my life. Okay, next one. So here's Sweatshop. Then let's go with another one, right? So here's forced slavery in Uzbekistan. So Uzbekistan's the 5th largest producer of cotton in the world. And it's estimated that every year 1 million people, Uzbeks, are forced to work in the cotton industry, in the cotton fields every year, picking cotton. And this is worth a lot of money for the Uzbeks. So this is one of like these like widespread slave systems in the world today that we don't get out of, okay? So next slide, bro. All right, so here we go. Now let's have a conversation. All the colors are all the shirts. And every year it's just more shirts and more shirts and more shirts, all made out of cotton, right? And you want to get the cheapest shirts, right? Because if I'm part of an organization, you're captain of an organization, or I'm fundraising for THON, and I need to buy shirts for my team or my sorority or my fraternity or my group or my club, whether it's Ohana or Ahana or whatever it's called, or something else. We're going to buy T-shirts. We don't want to spend $20 on T-shirts because we want to spend $3 on T-shirts, or $5 or $7 or whatever it is once we get them printed up. Because the extra money then could go toward THON and could go toward children who are the research against cancer, right? Because that's what matters. And so what I want to hear from the two of you, in particular you, because of your role in THON, but also you, bro, what is interesting to me is, and this goes back to what one of the Tierra, I think, was saying earlier. It's interesting that we have THON, which, by the way, is it's the largest student philanthropy in the world. It's amazing what THON does. Trust me, I've watched it grow. I've watched it become more powerful, bigger, raise more and more money. I mean, to see students do this is phenomenal, right? So, and I look at this. And I look at cotton and slavery, and I look at insecticides, and I think, we're raising money. You all are raising money. And you're buying, of course, you're going to buy the cheapest, the least expensive T-shirts possible, which are more and more likely, of course, to have been produced with insecticides and pesticides, which are more likely to have killed children in other countries or given them cancer, so that we could do research on cancer in our country. And, bro, can you go back to the slide of the kids and the cancer? So how is it that if I put that slide side by side with some THON children, how are their lives less valuable? And why isn't it that here at Penn State, and the reason, and you all are going to talk in a hot minute as soon as I'm done, right? I've been having this conversation with THON people for 4 years, maybe 5 years. Actually, for 15 years, but seriously for 4 or 5 years, saying, look, how is it that THON can continue to pursue this path? How do y'all pursue the path? It's like actually doing detrimental, like helping to support sweatshop labor, helping to support in industries that produce carcinogenic chemicals and kill people and make them sick. And how is it that our children here have more value than these children? Why don't we do something about this? right? Now, mind you, you're totally on the spot. This is not a holier than thou place. This is a conversation, just like the other conversation we have. Why don't we do something? And how don't we do something? And how is it that there's like this disproportionate sense of value? And who's responsible? And why aren't we responsible? And like, seriously, like, what is this all about? Either one can start.
I think, everything you said is absolutely right, and I don't really have an answer as to why, when we're ordering shirts, and I mean, the way it works is we have our licensed vendors, and we go through different vendors that are approved, and that's how we do all of our merchandise. And, everything you just mentioned, it isn't even really a thought in our minds, and, why, I mean, it should be, but at the same time, why would it be? We don't think that deeply into it, and we definitely should, but at the end of the day, those decisions were made because they would have the best, impact on our organization. We'd be spending the least amount of money. We'd be, raising, helping our vendors, helping them make money, and then benefiting ourselves in the process. I think if I can think of any solution, it would be to then seek out vendors that are fair trade and that could provide merchandise and products to us that we know we're not, through slavery or child slavery or something like that. But then you would have the implications of it being a lot more expensive, and that would just be us paying more, volunteers paying more, and things like that. So for selfish reasons then, so that we can make more money, and then so we can give more money to our beneficiary. But you're absolutely right.
So we can give more money here to create more problems somewhere else where we don't see them, right? Which is understandable. We don't see them.
It's kind of the sad reality. And if we were to do something about it, it would be then to seek out, the fair trade vendors and see if something could be worked out there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's you. You come up with that. I'm just raising the question, bro. How about you? What do you see?
I think that there's just a huge disconnect. Because I know when I go to wherever, like American Eagle or wherever, to buy a T-shirt, I'm not sitting there thinking about, okay, well, where did this cotton come from? I'm looking for, okay, hey, this shirt's 30% off, and it looks nice, so I'm going to buy it. I think for a lot of us, when we go out shopping, it's not really a thought in our minds to go and sit here and go, okay, well, where did the cotton come from, or who produced the T-shirt? How was it produced? How was it shipped? A lot of those questions I don't think we raise in our own minds when we go out to buy clothes. And it, as an organization, THON does incredible stuff here, and we do it for the kids. Thinking, all the points that you raised are very eye-opening. It's like, okay, well, are the kids over here more valuable than the lives overseas? The answer is no, but I think that we have the opportunity to more directly affect the people that are here than what we do overseas.
So, yeah, I agree with all that, really. What if there was a THON, let's just reverse it, right? Let's do a radical experiment for a moment. What if India was anywhere, right? Mexico, wherever. We would see it.
Yeah.
So I want to go to the vendor piece. Y'all have a lot of power, right? Penn State signs these contracts with all their vendors, whether it's Coke or Nike or whatever. Y'all have a lot of power. You could just say, you could come together and say, we're done. We're not doing that. We're just done. You could do that. And it would require you to put your foot down, but you could. I just want to put that out there, right? The administration doesn't have that power over you. So I don't know that I'm not saying you should. I'm just raising the questions. Part of what this class does is raise questions. What I always want to do is raise questions that can't be answered, because I don't have answers to any of this. I don't know. But if we're not asking questions, then we start to think we know what's going on. And when we start to think we know what's going on, then we're really in trouble. Bro.
All right, so just a comment regarding that 500,000 figure. that specific figure, it comes from the Walk Free Foundation. It's based out of Australia, and that has been very, very vigorously disputed by the government of India, apparently so, because of the fact that the foundation did not release the methodology with which it came to that figure of 500,000.
Yeah.
The only thing it did release was that the survey size that it used to get to that figure was 8 times larger than any other country, which skewed the data. Second point,
Dude, hang on.
I'm
I
about
want
to
to
finish
respond.
up. Just
Can I
like,
respond
give
to
me
that one first? Let me
just
respond to
one.
that.
No, it's not. It's nothing about you guys, but that figure, like, it's recently come out.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Just one more thing. The International Labor Organization, it has a definition for forced labor, but it still does not have a definition for more modern slavery. So the government has actually petitioned it to, like, discredit it completely.
No, but listen.
But it has, like, it's an open society.
Okay, listen, let me say about slavery, right? The vast majority of the slavery in the world is not forced slavery per se, like forced, I'm going to hold a gun to your head and make you work as a slave. It's like, it's contract slavery whereby you or your family or somebody who's related to you owes a debt. It's debt bondage, basically, right? And you can't get out of that debt, and that debt gets carried on and carried on and carried on, and that's just the nature of how that works. So forced slavery in the sense of debt is where the vast majority of India's slavery comes from.
You're absolutely correct. No, seriously, absolutely correct. And that was actually a system. It was called zamindari till it was I don't know how to.
Dude, don't get into the weeds here because no one's going to follow you.
Yeah. Oh no, totally fine. But it was actually it was there as an official system left by the British till 1945.
Yeah.
And then it was removed, rooted out in the sense post 1945 by a parliamentary resolution.
Okay, I got
There's
that.
like a
That's fine. Dude,
very,
no
very
one's going to follow you
vigorous-
at this point. Okay, I hear what you're saying. No,
Yeah,
you're getting
point
into
is-
the weeds. Like dude, by the way, this dude's a really smart dude, man, who knows a lot, but you're going to get into the weeds, so totally. Way smarter than okay, let me respond to the 500,000 figure, right? So we can quibble about numbers like that, whatever, it doesn't matter. I can go with the anti-slavery organizations that I always take the lowest level with all these organizations. And the one thing they're very clear on is that there's more child slavery in India than anywhere else in the world. So we can go 350, we can go 400,000, we can go 500,000, we can go 600,000. It doesn't really matter. That they all agree on. So we know there's child slavery in cotton production. So the final figure doesn't really matter.
Yo, we still have 7 minutes.
Yo, dude.
Everybody calm down.
Does anybody have a question? Anybody else have a question? Who has a question? Anybody have a question for them? Any other THON people want to say something? No. Dude, do one of you want to say something? What do you think about what I just said about y'all have the power? You could do it if you want to do it. Do you have a thought on that? Especially you.
I mean, we do, like, especially when it comes to our merchandise vendors, like, we truly do give them all of their business, and we do have the ability to pick the vendors that we want. But again, at the end of the day, you have to look at, it's, again, a very selfish thing, but you have to look at how it's going to affect the, like, internal operations of your own organization, like how much would come out of our budget for that, and then
Listen,
how that would.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. Movements start, a tiny act can have profound effects, okay? Penn State students and THON, you all have the ability to move and shake lots and lots of people. Sweatshops, the whole idea of sweatshop labor and so on, it doesn't get off the ground. What if the THON organization, THON, and so many students involved, actually, as much as putting cancer on the table, child cancer, what if along with child cancer was actually sweatshop labor? Like, what if that was the case? And you all, like, the child cancer is, in comparison, the amount of money that you raise for THON is a pittance compared to the amount of work that you could do in addressing the issue of sweatshop labor around the world and child sweatshop labor. But y'all could, like, really blow this thing open. So Just as a thought. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely with how much money THON raises and just the impact that we make, like we definitely, it would be small scale, but making a change within, I just think like, you're definitely right. It starts here, and although we're not gonna, by making one change, we're not gonna end child slavery, but it definitely, having as many students on board as we do, it definitely can
it's
make
not
a
that it
big
starts
impact.
here. It could start here.
It could start
Yeah,
here.
bro.
So two things. So two things. Like this is like a conversation about like responsibility and like who's responsible for what's going on, and we're kind of like jumping at THON, which is really like a good.
We're
way to
trying.
look
We're
at it.
doing what?
So like we're talking about responsibility
Yeah.
and like who's responsible for what's going on in these
Yep.
other countries. And as consumers, we have some amount of responsibility for where we source our products and what we buy. But it's a lot easier to just like ignore all like the bad stuff and just buy what's easy. But at the same time, for like an organization like THON, when they are like getting shirts, like it's mandatory for all these committee members to get their shirts, they want it to be as accessible to volunteers as possible. So by having them charge more for their t-shirts, it might not be as possible for someone who doesn't have that income to join the organization. And at the same time, maybe they could fight both childhood cancer and like slavery, but you also have to look at like the sexiness of what you're raising money for. Kids with cancer is about the easiest thing you can raise money for. Like when I go out canvassing or canning and it's like, oh yeah, we're raising money for kids with cancers, they're like, oh my God, like how can I not give money to this organization? Because like they have to. But then it's like, oh yeah, we're raising money to stop like sweatshops, that the clothing you're wearing. It's like, oh, that's like guilt, and I don't really want to think or worry about that. So it's a lot harder to have an organization get as big as this, especially when it deals with a far more controversial like issue.
Yeah. Listen. Wait, what's the is the clapping?
Easiest might not always be the best, though.
Yeah, I got a question. Wait, hang on. Look, I don't know, right? Dude. First off, a Sweatshop free shirt might cost you $2 more. Okay, we're not talking like $10 or $20. It might be $2. Okay, so let's be clear about that. And yeah, I hear you. This is a conversation. I hear you. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm raising questions that can't be answered. So, yes, bro.
Oh, yeah, just to play like devil's advocate in a way, like what if not supporting these like sweatshops, what if it leaves the kids worse off because they wouldn't be hired anymore?
Yeah. No, that's actually not a devil's advocate question. That's a really good question. And all of the people who I know who are really involved in these issues, whether it's slavery or sweatshop workers, what they say is don't just stop buying stuff. You have to work to actually transform the process from the bottom in, right? You can stop buying it from a certain level, like in a small scale like this, because this is a pretty small scale. But you really need to educate so that the industries actually transform themselves. And that's where something like THON could have the impact. Yeah.